I am joined today by Aasis Yadav, the Director of Solution Consulting for Chargebee. Welcome, Aasis, to Avalara Next.
Thanks, Jesse. Thanks for inviting me for the event.
Absolutely. It's great to have you here. I really want to spend a little time talking about what it's like being a builder development partner with Avalara. Before we get into that, can you just tell everyone who is Chargebee and maybe your role specifically at the company?
Yeah, sure. Chargebee is a revenue growth management platform. We're purpose-built for companies that operate in the subscription space or have a usage economy.
Yeah.
We empower both B2B and B2C customers globally with a suite of capabilities that enable them to take care of go-to-cash, self-serve sign-ups, subscription management, lifecycle management, as well as revenue recognition.
Okay. And what do you do at the company?
I lead the solution consulting team for North America enterprise and the mid-market segment.
Okay.
So my team and I, we are responsible for working with clients, understanding their business goals, what are the current problems, what is it that they want to achieve, where does Chargebee fit into their tech stack, and how do we integrate with the other tech platforms that they have to ensure a seamless and a scalable solution for them.
Got it. You're really well suited then for this conversation, right? You're talking about taxes, revenue management, subscription billing, companies scaling globally. I'm sure Avalara comes up in conversation quite a bit with you.
It does. We've been working with Avalara for the last almost a decade now,
yeah.
Jesse, right? And back in the day, subscriptions were very simple, right? I, as a business, wanted to sell something. I would probably charge you like 30, 40 bucks a month, or maybe on the number of units that I'm selling you on a monthly cadence.
Yeah.
And what I needed was a billing platform, right? And the ability to calculate taxes if I have to charge taxes and collect it at the right time from my end customer. And that's what we built with Avalara, right? First integration was the AVA tax on the sales side that allowed the Chargebee's customers to calculate taxes based on the nexus that they define in Avalara.
Yeah.
Right. Over a period of time, subscriptions really matured. They got complex. People dabble with price experimentation, A/B testing. Globalization was not just about, hey, I want to send out emails in German or in French. It was also about as a monetization strategy. And at that point of time, we're just not talking about collecting taxes from a single region, right? A company that's based out of, say, Carolina wanted to sell to customers in Europe, Asia Pacific, and Latin America.
Yeah.
So we're talking about cross-border payments, taxes, tax rates which are different across different countries, VAT ID validation, exemption certificate, and then much more parameters, right?
Yeah.
And that's what we worked with Avalara, right? Our integration matured, and today it's at a place where it's one of the most stable and widely used integration on our marketplace by our enterprise and mid-market customers.
Nice. Yeah, I love that story of iterative development and us kind of expanding feature set over time. You know, that's what I think a long-term partnership looks like, and I appreciate you guys doing that with us for over 10 years now. It's an incredible, fruitful relationship we have. I think you were mentioning earlier, even when you're doing demos with clients, sometimes they don't know that it's Avalara. It looks so seamless, right, in your experience, that you have to remind them that there's a development partnership, and yes, this part is Avalara, not Chargebee. I just love how we blurred our products so closely together.
That's true. Many times the customer's like, okay, that's very cool. You're able to calculate the taxes. And I'm like, well, in the backend, I've integrated with Avalara because I know
you're going to need it.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so yes, the integration is very seamless. If you just take a look at the UI that that's been built as part of this integration, it does not come across the Chargebee and Avalara. They're talking to each other in real time.
Yeah.
And I think that's the beauty of the integration that we are able to develop through this partnership, and we continue to enhance it. And today, particularly, I think we are taking this to the next level, right? I'm very excited about the E-invoicing integration that Chargebee has built with Avalara, and what that means for our customers to be compliant and decide to sort of go international, and then not worry about the compliance requirements.
Yeah, let me set the stage a little bit here, because this is a big shift, and it is an exciting new area of work for us together. So there is this thing called e-invoicing. Governments are really mandating the transmission of invoices in a clearance model of sorts, right? They want to approve either in real time or near real time transactions as they occur within their jurisdictional boundaries. It's really complex, and it's a mandate. It's not sort of something you can opt out of. Companies are going to have to comply with this. So partners like yourself are really leaning in and saying, I need to make this a really seamless experience for my customers if we're going to generate compliant invoices. So what were you hearing from your clients, about this problem space? Why was it such a focal point? What's made this the new priority for Chargebee?
I think you covered it beautifully, Jesse, right?
Okay.
In the sense, a couple of years ago, for governments, it was just about the tax money.
Yeah.
That if you're selling in my area, are you collecting the taxes? Are you finding the taxes with me? But over a period of time, they realized they also need access to the underlying data. Right, and because all governments, because the governments did not sit down in a round table and decided that, okay, let's have something that's cohesive. Each one.
It sounds like a world that doesn't exist. Yeah, that's not a thing.
Each one ended up having, they had the same end goal, but the way they approached it is different, right?
Yeah.
What that means is, if I want to do business in Germany, the data structure, the schema that they need is different.
Yeah.
They need is different compared to France or Italy.
Yeah.
Right? And that's what it translates to. That's what we were hearing from the customer. The customers are like, I see great potential in expanding to Europe or expanding to Latin America, but I understand that there are compliant requirements. And is that something that you can help us with?
Yeah. And as your team said, we got to solve this problem, I would imagine you were thinking build, buy, partner. There's all sorts of options. I know we have a relationship already, and that might sound like the obvious choice, but I would imagine you did some analysis beforehand. So can you talk through what that journey was like for your team, and why was it so obvious that partnership was the real, obvious, clear path forward?
Yeah. So our compliance team was obviously taking tabs of these customer conversations that we are in, right? And the more and more we are hearing from the customers, we understood that, okay, to support the globalization journey for our customers, and even for customers who are based in these areas, right, where this is becoming a regulatory requirement, we have to support this journey for them, right? So whether we do this ourselves or we find a partner, I think during that course of evaluation, we learned that, hey, Avalara has already built out the e-invoicing engine called ELR.
Yeah.
And our partnership just made sense to us that, okay, we should explore that rather than try and build something from scratch, because you have already taken the pain of understanding the compliance requirements and translating that into something that I can already consume.
Yeah.
Right. That was the thought process. But there was another layer, right, in terms of our engineering team also did a work of assessing what would it take to sort of build it out for us,
Yeah.
right? And so if you take a look at this slide that I brought around, right, Jesse, it talks about different parameters that as a developer, I had to take into consideration if I had to support the e-invoicing mandate, right? And this is not a rinse and repeat that, okay, I do this once for a particular country, say France, then I can just take that template and reproduce it for 59 other countries where invoicing is required.
Yeah, it's
right?
different every time. Yeah, and this is clarifying. This is a diagram of without a partnership, right? This is your own work.
Yes,
Yeah,
this is the kind of effort that I would have to take, or any developer would have to undertake if they were to do this just by themselves.
Yeah.
Right? Work closely with the compliance team, understand the data integrity and the data schema for each company, each country.
Yeah.
Right? What do they need? In what format do they need? Understand that, do I even have the data today as part of my business model, or how do I change it? If I have the data, how do I transform the data into a format that's compatible, that's required by the government authorities?
Okay.
Right? So
Yeah.
very soon we realized that, hey, it's a very massive problem to solve, especially at the scale that we were trying to operate at, and we want to enable our customers to operate on a global scale.
So paradigm shift. You work with Avalara. In lieu of this diagram, I know you don't have another one. We're going to actually do a demonstration in a moment, but it moves from this to sort of a single API layer with a trusted compliance engine for the e-invoicing services you need and sort of touch points you need all these government mandates, right? So it's kind of a complete overhaul of this diagram to more of a one-to-one. We'll obscure the complexity essentially from your team.
Right, and I think the demo is a great place to sort of see that what we'll be able to accomplish with Avalara, and it comes across so beautifully and seamlessly that this entire problem statement that I was talking about is like, okay, are you true? Is that something that you guys did in the back end? Because the process looks fairly straightforward now, that what we have been able to build with Avalara.
All right.
your team.
I love that. Let's transition then. Let's jump to a quick demo, and we'll come back and talk about kind of the launch and go-to-market process around this. So take it away to the demo.
Chargebee's integration with Avalara ELR is based on the open API ecosystem that's provided by Avalara. What Chargebee has done is we have understood the API setup and we have built a configuration play for our customers. So now when customers log into Chargebee, they're able to connect to the Avalara ELR app that's available on our marketplace. Once they do that, they can now go and set up the e-invoicing engine within Chargebee. I've set this up for Belgium and Germany. So now let's try and do this for France. I click on manage. Then based on the kind of customer profile that you have, you can add more documents that would be relevant to be sent to the tax authorities. If you do have customers in the B2G segment, you can add those relevant documents as well. Once you do that, for each of these documents, you need to set them up. It's a two-step process. In the first step, you need to define that amongst all the invoices that are getting generated in Chargebee, which one needs to follow this particular workflow. For that, what I've written is that any invoice that has a taxable country as France needs to go through this workflow. Once this is done, the second is the most important and critical part of the setup, where you need to define the field mapping between the data objects in Chargebee and the relevant data object that Avalara requires to submit the e-invoice to the relevant tax authorities, which is France, in the right manner. On the left-hand side here, you see the document fields which are required by Avalara. You choose the mapping type. By doing that, you'll be able to choose the relevant Chargebee object as well as the relevant field that should be mapped to the Avalara document object. Once all of this is done for the required as well as the conditional and the optional fields needed by Avalara, the setup is done. Now, let us go and see what does this mean for an end customer. Now, I have a customer called Justin Adams. Let's try and create a subscription for this and see how does for this particular customer. I've already keyed in the billing address. Justin Adams resides in Germany. Let me choose a professional plan, which is billed in euros on a monthly cadence. And the price point is 100 euros per month. Now, if I click on create, the VAT is automatically getting calculated. And that's also getting calculated through Chargebee's Avalara sales integration. So the total invoice is 119 euros. When I click on create, Chargebee does two things. Chargebee creates the subscription, creates the invoice, automatically charges the invoice based on the payment method that's available. And finally, we send the relevant information to Avalara to file the e-invoice on your behalf to the relevant tax authorities. Here's the invoice. The invoice status is paid. If I go down, the invoice status right now is in progress. What that means is we have sent the required data to Avalara. Avalara in real time is validating the efficacy of the data and will send the status back to Chargebee that, hey, do I have everything that's required to submit this to the French authorities or anything additional is required? Within a matter of seconds to a minute, the status gets updated. So here it moved from in progress to success, which means that Avalara has everything from an e-invoicing perspective and has now even submitted this to the French authorities. And that's why the relevant document ID has been created. As a final step, if you want, by clicking on the ellipsis, you can also download the associated XML file if needed.
All right, welcome back, you guys. I love seeing what you built. First of all, thank you for preparing that demonstration. I think it's awesome to see like the real user experience. Like you said, this unified single entry point for global e-invoicing mandates right within Chargebee. So really well done. Can you talk about what it was like building with Avalara, our documentation, sort of your interaction with my teams, and as you sort of had questions, just kind of walk through that process a little bit.
Right. So when our engineering and product team understood the volume and the scale of the problem that needs to be solved, and when you guys and your engineering team shared the Postman collection, we were amazed at how beautifully your engineering team has been able to translate such a complex requirement into something that's easy to understand. And it just requires us to map our data
Yeah.
to into a format that Avalara needs in order to ensure the e-invoice mandate compliance for the jurisdictions or the countries the customer wants to operate in, right? We had great support from your team, right? Documentation goes a long way, but then having that real person support in terms of asking questions as we began this development journey, I think was really important for us to sort of kickstart this and deliver this in no time.
Yeah.
Right. During that conversation, we also learned, right, or the aha moment for us was that e-invoicing requires data, right? And I've talked about this already, that it requires data in a particular format, right? If you don't get it in that particular format, or worse, if you don't even have the data, right, your e-invoicing mandate will fail. So we discussed with your team, and what made sense for us was to build like a pre-validation layer, right? What that does is that it allows us to validate that the data that we are collecting from the end customer, is that sufficient? We are able to send that to Avalara in real time. Avalara validates that, yes, this customer is from Germany. The data that was sent to me is correct or not. Is this the entirety of the data that we need to sort of submit the invoice to the German authority portal? In the worst case, if that's not the case, let's say a VAT ID is missing or some other parameter, there's a bad data, we're able to catch it in real time, surface it to the end customer as a prompt, and they're able to correct it, right?
Yeah, so sort of bringing an error code way upstream, resolving it before you actually even transmit, interact with the government, kind of expose yourselves to this problem.
I know.
Yeah.
So we wanted to sort of make the experience very seamless.
Yeah.
And if there are any challenge or any issues, we want to sort of highlight that upfront, because this has a direct impact on your compliance, right? If the data is not right, you're not able to submit it, your mandate gets rejected. It's not just that you're non-compliant, you also have to worry about the potential penalties that you'll accrue till the time you don't get this right.
Yeah, yeah. So this is a big, complex problem, kind of a change in the industry, if you will. And there's a lot of conversations between, I'm sure, your sales folks and your customers, your solution engineering team and your customers. Even your support team is going to have some context about such a massive change, and they want to be experts in the field, providing that trusted advice to their customers. So can you talk about how you've been preparing your team to launch this integration and really make it successful within your organization?
Yeah, that's a great question, Jesse, right? We've divided this into 2 certification programs with Avalara,
Yeah.
right? So our GTM team, which is sales, customer success, and the solution consulting team, is learning about why do customers need this, right? What is the compliance requirement that is asking customers to go down this journey,
Yeah.
right? And what does that mean? What does it mean to not be compliant from a business standpoint? What's the value proposition of Chargebee and Avalara's integration? Why should a client choose this over deciding to build it themselves? And how much time it will take them how much time it will take them to sort of build it out themselves if they have to, right? At the same time, once we work with the client and the client aligns to the idea that, okay, this makes sense, the deal is closed, we have our implementation and the customer support team that's learning that, okay, how does the integration actually work, right? How do I support them in their journey in terms of ensuring that the data that's collected in Chargebee can be mapped to the data that's required by Avalara? Right, so there are 2 different certification programs. You've made great, healthy progress in terms of ensuring that our teams are trained on that in the coming months.
I appreciate your buy-in to our concept of certification here. And just for the audience and everyone's benefit, we do have 2 certification programs. One is really around your integration and making sure it's up to the specifications of the mandate, requirements that we know about and that we're defining in our API documentation. The second one is really about field teams. We call it our Certified Implementation Partner Program, but you're really becoming an expert in how does the service work? Can I even take a client live? We have many of our partners that just build a services business around our products and services. So I really appreciate your team leaning in and participating in both of these programs. It's really exciting to see. Any takeaways, any final tips or tricks you'd like to give the audience before we kind of close out here? And things you'd say, hey, make sure you do this when you build with Avalara, or approach projects this way, anything like that?
Well, if you're in the subscription space, then make sure you use this integration.
You got to have a plug, yes, yeah.
But yeah, I think if you have a different business model, I will strongly recommend that as you engage in this journey with Avalara and understand the API specifications and the compliance requirements, take the time and the effort to build that pre-validation layer that I talked about. That's so mission critical to ensure that you do this right the first time, right? It's not about the rework. It's about ensuring that you have a peace of mind when you decide to expand internationally and you know that you don't have to worry about compliance and you can focus just on your monetization strategy.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. I mean, this has been a great conversation, Aasis. I couldn't thank you enough for coming here, being part of Next. And for anyone out there who wants to learn more specifically about any of our products, but e-invoicing specifically, please visit developer.avalara.com. Thank you again so much.